Hi, Gary. Good to see you.
Hi, Caroline. How are you?
Yeah, well, good. Well, I'm excited to talk to you today because we're looking at things with a very different angle, aren't we? We're always normally talking about from the investor's point of view, but today we're going to look at things slightly differently because you've got two hats on. You've got your estate agency business and you are an investor. So interestingly, it normally is an estate agent who then moves into becoming an investor, but you've gone the other way. You've gone investor into estate agency. So how did that all come about and why did you do it?
Well, I guess taking it a step before actually becoming an investor, I was in fact in the industry as an estate agent. So it was similar, it was something I knew pretty well, and obviously got into the investing side of it. Got out there and started investing stuff and thought, ideally I wanted to get away from my job. But long story short is I've actually still got a good interest in the industry itself and realised it's another good valuable source of income. So yeah, it all came about through that really. So now back sort of doing what I know and creating my own business really.
Brilliant. So that's your active income stream that you're then pumping into your investments for the passive. So that's a brilliant business model for you. So your estate agent is going really well. I love the marketing. Estate, really clean, smart, high end, lovely. How on earth does an investor get an estate agent on side without bribing them? Obviously, because you guys as the estate agent want the highest price, investor wants the lowest price. So what advice would you give to investors out there on how to get the best out of it?
Well, I mean, again, it'll always depend on what you're actually trying to achieve and what type of asset you're trying to acquire. But I think ultimately you need to always be involved with the estate agent. There's no sense in kind of sparking up an initial relationship and then it cooling off. I think you need to always be almost just like your offers. You need to be following up. That relationship needs nurture. There's no point in going and meeting someone at a viewing or a couple of going in and a walk in and having a chat with someone and then not really sort of nurturing it. So I think you'll always get time from agents if you're going in about it in the right angle. If you're just coming in, making a cold call and almost upsetting an agent. I think you've got to do different angles to nurture relationships. The market sentiment's different now, so it is a good time for investors to be looking at, working on their skill set of sort of nurturing relationships. Certainly, it's definitely a good time to build those relationships. That's what I would say.
Brilliant. Okay, so I guess one of the biggest fears new investors have is putting in those cheeky offers, right? They're so worried about an estate agent being insulted, not taking them seriously, or being annoyed at them putting in a low ball offer. Number one, has anyone ever lowballed you as an estate agent?
You'll get low ball offers, and I've certainly had done more than enough myself to get where you kind of got with their own portfolio. So I can feel how new investors feel. Certainly, it's still uncomfortable to this day, even offering on commercial stuff. So I can totally empathise with that side of it. And yes, I have had it as an agent as well. But maybe a good way to look at it is, could not only looking at it like you're about to upset someone, but you could almost be saying, well, this could also help build a case for the agent. So something's not moving, something's not sold already. Why is it not sold? Why is it not sold at top price? Because clearly the whole of the market doesn't think it's worth that.
Yeah.
So can we go in with a strategy to, and mentally think, well, if I present this offer, the agent has to go and tell his client about that. So it actually might help him, because the expectations all of a sudden of the seller might come down a little bit. So that's the way I kind of see it in that way. If I've got something that it sits there too long and the market doesn't see it at its value, if I get an offer in I kind of feel obliged to tell it to the client, and all of a sudden these crazy expectations might come down a little bit. And if you can articulate it in a way to the agent that hopefully it helps you, tell the client about where the market is at the moment, it might help everyone progress.
Brilliant. Okay, I hadn't thought about it in that way, because in my head I always thought you have to explain yourself to the agent on why you're putting in an offer at that level. Yes. But in actual fact, it could be helping the agent manage the vendor's expectations.
I think the thing is, agents have heard, that same story, the reasons why the offer comes in low. They know that everyone's going to say it needs a new kitchen, it needs this, they need that. They've seen it with their own eyes, they've been out of the property, they know that. And that's one thing, you can explain that and reiterate that, that's fine. But I just think it might be a good opportunity to go in at a different angle and be seen as not such a bad type of investor, or it's a different angle, and it might just be something. And then, again, you're trying to have a sort of some foresight on the actual relationship with the agent as well. So if you can go in that way, I think it's less, aggressive in a way. And I personally think that you get more success like that.
There we go. Okay. So if, let's say, it's the very first time you've met a potential purchaser, would you be looking, what would you be looking for from them so that you then take their offer seriously, even if it's going to be below par?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably got a bit of a unfair advantage on this because I can see it. I've got two hats on it, but I think your average sort of estate agent has probably never invested themselves. There'll be, there's an opportunity, certainly with the education side of it, and what you guys teach. It's definitely, you've probably got one over the agent and telling them reasons and things like that. But an experienced one for myself, I think I would obviously sort of call the bluff a little bit, in that sense, where it's like, right, what was your proof of funds, and allow me to build up a bigger case for you. That's how I would do it. But then that's obviously to kind of cut out the people that are not less serious to the people that are serious. If you've done your due diligence, you've got your numbers, you've got your proof of funds, I think I would be happy to work with somebody like that, and then that allows me to move on with my case and put the case forward to my client, so to speak.
So it's very interesting that you said proof of funds there, because that's often a panic button for new investors who are starting out. They're going and viewing, they're running their numbers, they've got an offer that they want to make, and the agent says, let me see your proof of funds. And then we get a panicked message going, oh my God, an agent's asked me for proof of funds. What do I do? What do I do? You've told me that I have to say that I'm a cash buyer, and I'm not a cash buyer, and I'm going to use an angel investor, and freak out. Yeah. Yeah. What type of proof of funds have you seen over the piece? What would you be satisfied with?
It could be if you've got, any kind of angel investing or any actual funding there. It just has to be sort of an account that I believe to be in your name. Okay. From my point of view, whoever is going to be the purchaser, as the accounts there in that account, and then that's about as much due diligence as we can do before it then goes to conveyancing.
What about if someone has a letter from, let's say, a bridging company saying, we have approved this person for bridging up to X amount of money? Would that be satisfactory for you? Yeah, I mean, that's probably, that from a agent's point of view, to then, assuming that would be an acceptable offer, to then go from the soliciting side, the estate agency side to the soliciting side, that's probably deemed acceptable, as long as you kind of, I think probably the due diligence on if it's done in sort of limited company, so to speak. I think that's where the conveyancing, the solicitor really sort of digs in a bit more further. But yeah, from an agent's point of view, that's more than enough. That's more than enough. Okay, so having physical money in the bank account isn't necessarily essential as long as you've got access to the funds and you can prove that. I think obviously if that's
it's almost like what's on the top of the tier. You know, the ideal situation for the agent is, the cash is in the account of the person that's going to buy it. But then, you know, the further down we go, it might well be, right, they've got proof of funds from the lender, they've got proof of funds from, you know, gifted stuff. It just depends, but the ideal situation is it's sitting in an account, you know, of the buyer, but we know that's not always the case. You can get those proof of lending letters from brokers and you know, such like. So yeah, just have all your ducks in a row before that conversation's had.
Okay, and conveyancing, which kind of leads on to, I guess, the money side of things. How long are you seeing conveyancing take on a purchase at the moment, at the time of recording, or May 2023? How long are you seeing conveyancing take roughly?
In our market, it's about 8 weeks.
8 weeks, yeah. But you often hear people saying, you know, I'm a cash buyer, I can get this done in 3 weeks. Is that realistic?
Well, I've only had one go through recently on 4 weeks, and it was just, it'll always depend on the complexities within the actual title deeds itself. That's what every solicitor will say. It's like, it depends how simple the deeds are or not, or how many people are going on the deeds, for example. But I have seen one being pushed through at 4 weeks, but I would never go out as an agent and quote that as a time frame. But if you hear it from your own solicitor, the quickest turnaround time, then, and it is quicker than the norm, then you need to leverage that when you're putting that offer in. Definitely. If you've got a quality solicitor there that's telling you, if you've got your lending there and they know that they can see that the title, they've done a title search, they know the complexities, they reckon that they can do it quicker, then you definitely emphasize that you can do it quicker, because that you need to leverage everything you can, right? Lovely.
Okay, so speed could play an advantage. The fact that you're not in a chain can play to your advantage. The fact that you're helping the agent put a case to the vendor to manage expectation works to your advantage. What else could work to your advantage when working with an agent that would help?
They can probably help you with your strategy, you know, because they might have access to things that you don't have access to. You know, sales archives, for example, I can see things that people can't see in public for another, 3 to 5 months. So again, it depending on is it the latest comparable they can maybe give you help with, you know. So again, that relationship thing, you know, if you're doing flips, can they be the agent of choice that does the listing for you? You need to just plant all these seeds. You need to nurture that relationship, you know, and you need to make them aware that you're looking for a two-way relationship. You're not just saying, can you help me with this? You would like to say, well, what stage are you, giving back? And if it's a flip, surely they're getting the listing, and then all of a sudden you've got something to work with.
All right. So what if a client who wants to sell their property came your way and it was an absolute stinker, right? Because I'm assuming your dream client would have a really well-presented property in a great location. It's all nicely decorated and staged and looking fab, because you're thinking this is going to be easy to sell, right? But someone comes along with a howler. It stinks of smoke. It's got fleas in the carpets. It's absolutely howling. What are you thinking with your estate agent's hat on at that moment?
My estate agent's hat on is you're probably not wanting that type of stock to be public. So that's where you do look at your books, your black book of who's been looking for that, who's desperate for that, Initially, if that property comes crosses my path, then I will quickly have the expectations of the seller, down it. Yeah, just manage, because I from the investor point of view, I genuinely think, that's the only type of buy that's going to be. You won't get a real owner-occupier looking for that type of thing, generally, unless it's a bigger house. But the first-time buyer stuff and flats and such like, I would quickly sort of lower the expectations of the the seller, and then I would dive into a little book of people who have genuinely been in contact and genuinely shown interest, and genuinely who I can see doing business with, because it might well be they want to just, like as I said earlier, like fix it up and put it back on the market, and then all of a sudden the agent's happy to list something that's new and shiny.
Yeah. So I had never thought about ever the angle of an estate agent not wanting to list a smelly property with their branding. It might not be the image necessarily that they want. So of course your estate agent's image is very clean, high end, smart. You are going for a higher caliber of client and buyer. So right enough, a stinky little ex-council flat that needs refurb, you're probably not wanting to put your brand to that. So selling that off market to somebody in your books is probably more attractive for you. So there we go. That's another massive reason why all of our listeners who are investors should be building relationships, telling the estate agent very clearly what they're looking for, so that they can be called upon when a stinker comes through the door.
But that's it. I mean, and again, nurturing that relationship and almost making it clear that there's a reason for this relationship. It's not like, just give me your property. It's like, no, I'll give you this back, and just overemphasize that and keep in touch, even if there's nothing to chat about. I know, when we were sort of starting out, it was one of them where you drop in the donuts to the estate agents and all that stuff. That's maybe you don't need to do that stuff, but definitely be on the blower to them. Definitely surprise them now and again. Maybe you don't even need to be asking for anything. Maybe you're just sort of dropping in, and all of a sudden the perception of the agent is like, they're actually nice people type thing, rather than it's about, take.
Yeah, it's definitely a people business. And I think, people who are getting into this at the beginning, they're maybe a little intimidated, like you say, about the estate agent being the gatekeeper for the deals, but actually they are fundamentally in a job, most of them, right? And don't have that business or investor acumen, like you mentioned. So there's definitely something to be less fearful of the big bad estate agent.
And in most cases, I mean, not all agents, but most cases, that there's usually a commission-based model. So, if that property's sticking, it's minute them selling it at over the home report versus selling it below the value. Yeah. It's very little off of their commission. They'd rather just get commission. So that's me looking at it from the investor side. It's like that's the way you need to look at it.
Play the game and play for what the estate agent wants, which is a good turnover, fresh stock coming on boards and getting rid of. Because obviously, if there's sold signs everywhere with your name on it, then your reputation in that area suddenly goes through the roof as an estate agent, and more stock then comes your way. So it is that nice cycle of new stock coming your way. Well, this has been fascinating. Any last little words of advice to our investors who are out there that might be a little apprehensive about walking into an estate agent for the very first time? What advice, little golden nuggets would you give them to finish with, if there's anything?
I mean, you've touched on it earlier. It's like anything. Every business, investing as well, it's a people business. I would never. What's the worst that can actually happen? Like, you stutter, you say something wrong. You know what? It's like, once you've done something once or twice or three times, it's fine, isn't it? It's just that first time. But I've been there. I know exactly what it's like. I see people doing it. It's not every agent's mean and angry, and that's just a perception of coming in and trying to upset an agent. It's not the case. As I said, I think there's a good angle by going around it in another way, rather than just coming in with lowball offers. Of course you're going to have to give lowball offers at some stage, otherwise you're not really investing. But I think there's merit in building up the relationship at the same time.
Brilliant. Love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your dual personality Split personality, Gary Wales. There we are. Investor and, well, you're more of a business owner rather than a estate agent. But I love the fact that you're making, money in the property industry that you can then put into your portfolio, which is a really sound way of structuring your business. Thanks for your time, Gary. See you again soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Caroline.